As part of the Blueprint Discourse, we will also hear Defense Secretary Mr. Rajesh Kumar Singh share his thoughts on India's roadmap for becoming a rising power. There will be an interaction with ISRO Chairperson Dr. V. Narayanan on India's space vision and a conversation with Mr. Rajinder Singh Bhatia, the Chairman of Defense Business at Kalyani Group, who will offer the industry's perspective on how reforms around the private sector's participation in India's defense manufacturing are playing out. But first, let me welcome on stage our chief guest, Defense Secretary Mr. Rajesh Kumar Singh. Thank you very much, Mr. Singh, for taking the time out to be with us today. And also, please welcome Business Standard Editor Mr. Shailesh Dobhal, who will deliver the welcome address and, of course, launch the magazine, Blueprint.
Thank you, Vinu, and good morning, everybody. On behalf of Business Standard, let me extend a very warm welcome to all of you to this special Business Standard event, the Blueprint Discourse, that we are holding on the occasion of the launch of our monthly Defense and Geopolitics magazine, Blueprint. Let me now formally welcome our distinguished chief guest for today's event, Mr. Rajesh Kumar Singh, Honorable Defense Secretary in the Ministry of Defense, Government of India. Mr. Singh is a 1989 batch IS officer from the Kerala cadre. His tenure coincided with the ministry's Year of Reforms initiative, which has gained greater salience following Operation Sindoor. During this period, reforms have been introduced to further streamline how India procures its arms and munitions, accelerate the pace of acquisitions, and increasingly prioritize Indian companies. More measures aimed at boosting the domestic defense industries are also expected. The ministry has achieved key milestones under Mr. Singh. For the first time in 5 years, the military modernization budget was fully utilized in the last financial year, and a record rupees 2 trillion worth of defense contracts were signed. Thank you, Mr. Kumar, for accepting our invitation to join us today at the Blueprint Discourse. The context in which we are holding this event and launching Blueprint is interesting. And I mean interesting in the sense what is commonly understood, though often misquoted as an old Chinese curse in "May you live in interesting times." And these are interesting times indeed. War is waging in Europe for the last 3 years, in the Middle East for 2 years. Closer home, we had a short but intense kinetic engagement with our neighbor in Operation Sindoor this summer. Trump-led US's worldview, with its inward, insular, and short-sighted focus on all things strategic and economic, has seriously challenged the idea of the West security grouping as we have understood it for the past 7 decades. No wonder decades-old strategic partnerships between countries and blocs are fraying, and some have already come unstuck. New partnerships, strangely borrowing from the Cold War playbook, are emerging, and some not too distant from our shores and borders, as we have seen in the last few days. Across the world, most countries are going back to the drawing board to rethink their long-held security, defense, and geopolitical doctrine and assumptions. The nature of warfare itself is changing very fast. It is no longer limited to the physical battlefield. And as raging conflicts across the world have shown us in the last few years, its interconnectedness is not just limited between land, air, and sea forces, but permeates through areas like cyberspace, outer space, artificial intelligence, communications, and information systems. Like an expert quoted in the first issue of Blueprint, and I quote, "Next generation technology is no longer a support system. It is the battlefield," unquote. And we have seen commerce being weaponized like never before, with control over supply chains for anything from chips, graphic processing units, even industrial equipment and materials like heavy haul cranes and rare earths becoming a leverage to serve strategic geopolitical ends. Equally, dependencies in these areas is being seen as a chink in the national armor. The timing of the Blueprint Discourse is also interesting on what was said and then followed up with action by the country's leaders over the past month or so. Last month, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, while addressing the nation on the occasion of 75th Independence Day from the Red Fort, renewed his call for self-reliance across sectors, from strategic defense to semiconductors, clean energy to digital sovereignty. Essentially, the PM drove the message that self-reliance, or Atmanirbharta, needs to be the guiding principle of India's development strategy and the growth model towards a Samruddh and Viksit Bharat 2047. In the context of Operation Sindoor, the Prime Minister underscored the need to bank on indigenous technology and defense platforms for offensive as well as deterrent capabilities. He announced Mission Sudarshan Chakra, aimed at neutralizing enemy defense infiltrations and enhancing India's offensive capabilities, and covering all public places by an expanded nationwide security shield by 235. A fortnight after PM's Red Fort speech, Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, addressing a first-of-its-kind tri-services seminar on warfare and warfighting in the Ran Samvad at the Army War College in Mao, said, and I quote, "It would not be wrong to say that the age we live in has just one doctrine, that there is none. Circumstances and challenges are changing with such speed that every nation is compelled to keep its strategy flexible and responsive," unquote. With Blueprint launched today, our attempt is to provide a platform for comprehensive coverage of defense policy, global geoeconomic and geopolitical, realpolitik, and military technologies, all anchored with strong ethos of a very credible, dependable, over half a century-old business standard brand of journalism, which is committed to accuracy and fairness, grounded in empirical data, is insightful, authoritative, and above all, independent of interest groups. May I now invite Mr. Kumar to kindly release the first edition of Blueprint. Yeah. May I also take this opportunity to please invite the entire Blueprint team, the team that helped put this whole magazine together, up on stage, please. Shatrupa, Bashwar, please. Come. So this is the team. May I now invite my colleague and Business Standards Editorial Director, Mr. A.K. Bhattacharya, up on stage to come and start the firesides with the Honorable Defense Minister. AKB, over to you. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. There's no fire out here, and yet we want to make it a fireside chat. So let me sort of get into it.
The world is on fire, I think.
World is on fire, yeah. It's also in a flux these days. To this audience, would you like to share how your life and work have changed post-Operation Sindoor, or not changed at all? How do you see your life post and pre-Operation Sindoor as the Defense Secretary?
No, I don't think there's been any change in my priorities. From day one, when I joined the Ministry of Defense, I was I saw it as an extension of my previous job, which was Secretary DPIIT, except that the focus would now be on a sector, the defense industry, rather than in terms of the entire industrial or manufacturing landscape of the country. The other focus area was in trying to sort of finally get a hang of how to get this procurement wheel moving a little faster, which is an old bugbear for our country. So, I mean, these were my two priorities, and from day one, I've been focused on that. Of course, along with the national priority that the Honorable Prime Minister has laid down, that we need to double down in terms of indigenization. The very fact that, the events around the world validate that thrust towards indigenization, and we intend to double down on that. So all of those priorities haven't changed. It only, after Operation Sindoor, it just makes it a bit more urgent.
Indigenization, you mentioned that as one of your primary goals. Where are we in that yardstick, by that yardstick?
So let me answer it like this. The indigenization is obviously, it's a journey. You can't reach the destination overnight, and you'll have to essentially look at all the domains in our defense industrial sector and see what is the, in a sense, what is the technology readiness you have, the TRL level you reached across different technologies. And depending on that, you need to take pragmatic decisions on what you do. And in certain areas, you'll obviously try to do everything within the country, from design to manufacturing. And there is a bunch of areas like that which has come about due to the efforts of DRDO over the years. Areas like artillery and various types of armored land systems, long-range missiles, multi-barrel rocket launchers. All of these areas we've achieved a level where the bulk of the work can be done within the country. There are others where the TRL level would be somewhere between 5 to 8, where the promising results have come about through DRDO, but to reach manufacturing levels, we still have some time to go. And in those areas, you'll probably have to look at some levels of technology transfer, code development, manufacturing, and limited calibrated imports where required. And finally, there will be certain cutting edge areas where we don't as yet have even a design idea or a concept. And in those cases, of course, you may have to rely on imports as well. So that's broadly the landscape as I see it. And we have to sort of ensure that we take pragmatic decisions on all of these to ensure that our forces don't fight with significant capability voids when it comes to their adversaries.
Indigenization in a commercial world has a certain connotation, has implications, has significance. Indigenization in the world of defense and strategic affairs, do the meanings change and their priorities change?
In defense, in strategic affairs, true indigenization would essentially mean that the entire design and IPR rests within the country. And of course, you do manufacturing, and you might still need some components from outside, some imports, but the design and the IPR rest within the country. That is indigenization, but you won't reach it overnight. So you will have, as I said, different levels. And in certain cases, when it comes to purely in terms of the contracts that you sign, you define it in a slightly different form, in the form of indigenous content, which is really the net sales value of that particular platform or product minus the value of imports that it has. That is the formula we use not only here, but also in our production-linked incentive scheme, for example, which is there in some 20 odd sectors of the industry, which we used to handle in DPIIT earlier. So there you try to achieve a certain level of localization with the belief that it will grow an ecosystem, and eventually you will, a bit like the example of the Maruti, for example, you start with or for example, Apple right now, where you have a localization level of, say, less than 20%, but you expect that as the ecosystem expands, it will go higher, as it has for, say, Maruti, for example, where it started with similar low levels of localization, and now it has gone to above 80%, although there are still some, engine design elements that are still not entirely with them. So yeah, I mean, it's a long journey, but indigenization here will mean different milestones. But I mean, the ultimate idea should be that you should achieve full IPR within the country.
Yeah, the reason why I asked you that question was also because there is this view, a theory, that we cannot make a compromise with defense preparedness when it comes to indigenization in defense matters. What's your view?
Yeah, so I think I kind of answered that question, that you can't say that we are making something, and if the time frame is 15 years, obviously you can't allow a capability void to sort of persist while you wait for the promised indigenous product to come online or to reach manufacturing or the production line. So yeah, that's where a level of pragmatism is required. We will, which is why we've in our urge to move towards indigenization, we've set up certain sort of targets. One of those targets is that 75% of our capital budget will be spent within the country.
Okay.
But while achieving that, we know that there will always be some elements which we will have to sort of, depending on the TRL level, we may still have to import. And we've also created some flexibility for the forces, post-Sindoor in particular, in terms of giving them the flexibility to resort to emergency procurements up to 15% of their capex, which is again meant to ensure that the capability gaps, which are really sort of hurting them, or where they feel a need to immediately replenish some stocks for certain types of weapons, those they are able to do without having to wait for our indigenous technology and research to deliver the results.
In that sense, the Atmanirbharata or indigenization, they do get slightly modified in a defense context. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, it does get modified in the sense that here your supply chain vulnerability, import dependence, the possible weaponization of your vulnerabilities, all of that are a little more serious in nature. Although increasingly the world is seeing the weaponization of trade and supply chain vulnerabilities across the board. But in defense, it is obviously worse, because it makes you, more, I mean, your heart path accordingly will not grow the way you want it to grow, which is why Atmanirbharta is so important for this country. And recently, during the Commanders' Conference, again, the Prime Minister stressed this, and this is really something that he's been stressing for ever since he came to power in 2014. But the recent events have made it seem pretty prescient in many ways, that you need to, in order to reduce your, reduction of import dependence actually, improves your ability to exercise our goal of strategic autonomy. And that is why we need to ensure that our defense sector becomes a fairly wide and diversified industrial sector. What has happened in the past is that we've largely relied on the public sector for a very long period of time. That situation is now changing, and the private sector, which initially was, I would say, fairly reluctant to invest in this sector because of the sporadic nature of the orders and the risks and the attendant risks that follow. Now they are increasingly investing here, and our job is to ensure that while the public sector has the first mover advantage, we create a level playing field for them, so that we actually grow a much wider industrial base with much more of surge capacity when it comes to emergencies. And you'll see whether it is, in terms of munitions, we are no longer going to say our new revenue procurement manual makes it clear that we are not reserving products for any particular public sector. We'll be keeping it open. The idea is to induce the private sector to invest in those areas. The same approach you've seen with AMCA, where we've tried to get private sector involvement. And you'll see in the future, even in areas like missiles, I don't think BDL alone is going to be meeting the requirement for missiles, given the changing nature of warfare and the need for these standoff weapons. So we'll have to have a much wider industrial base of companies meeting our requirements, whether it is fighter aircraft, whether it is ships, whether it is missiles, or whether it is munitions. And that is really the goal that the government has and I have.
Yeah, you talked about also, apart from indigenization, you talked about procurement as one of your primary areas of focus. I'll come to that later. But while answering this question on indigenization, you also referred to the rocky times that we are going through vis-a-vis US on trade. The question that I have in my mind is that while we do have a rocky relationship with the US on trade matters and it is evolving very rapidly, we don't know as yet how it will really emerge. What is the state of our defense relationship with the US? How rocky it is, or is it as stable as one thought it used to be earlier?
There is no spillover effect from the what you described as the
Yeah.
rocky. Hopefully, it is changing for the better. But
Yeah.
on the trade type, there is no spillover effect on the defense dialogue so far. We've had teams coming in, the 2+2 dialogue. We had one team yesterday, a very large one, discussing one of our possible procurement targets from the US, which is a maritime reconnaissance aircraft, a fairly large potential order. So all those dialogues are ongoing, and there's been no effect. I guess both sides are seeing the two as interlinked, but we would like to sort of ensure that we get breakthroughs on that side, and if there is any leverage on this side, we ensure that both come together to the benefit of the country when it comes to the overall trade ties as well.
Let me now turn to another issue that you referred to in your observations, which is how do you involve the private sector? Of late, we sense that public-private partnerships as a concept is acquiring different meanings, and whether it is public or private. So what is the scope and the state of play on public-private partnership in the defense areas?
I think conventional public-private partnership is not the issue here. I mean, conventional PPP projects involve, giving a project on a bidding basis to the private sector, where the government takes some of the risks and passes on some of the risks to them. Here we are. I mean, the government essentially is the sole buyer here, and the only thing we have in this case is to leverage our buying power to develop the domestic industry, which is why I mentioned that 75% target that we have for domestic spend out of our capex budget. Last year we actually did 88%, even though the target was 75%. What we can do for the private sector is really take care of both the supply side bottlenecks and the demand side. On the demand side, the issue is to ensure that they get a level playing field, remove product reservations of the kind that I mentioned, stop nomination-based awards to public sector enterprises, do everything by tendering to the maximum extent possible. On the supply side, you need to take care of, the conventional ease of doing business issues in terms of, I mean, this is one of the few industries which is still licensed in the country. So taking care of their, delays in the licensing process in terms of security clearances, and thereafter in terms of when they ask for licenses for imports, for exports, etc., also to speed up those timelines. So, I mean, we are in the process of tackling all of those. On the buying side, I'll come back to procurement again because you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Again, the intent is to ensure that the private sector feels that it can basically come in and bid for anything. There is no cost plus based nomination being given to anybody. If you are able to compete, you will get the orders. And in fact, in one of the events to the CII, I remember saying that the private sector can rest assured that there will be enough visibility when it comes to orders. They should, essentially invest in capital and in engineering manpower and get ready to sort of take advantage of the orders that are coming.
In public-private partnership, as we have seen play out in the non-defense sectors, there is a free interplay of data, information, even technology on offer. Now, is that a hurdle? Is that an obstacle? Because in defense, public-private partnership, probably data and information, even technology, will be somewhat, restricted or kept confidential. Is that an issue, you think?
I don't think it is. Actually, if you see the most of the R&D in defense is of course done by the public sector, which is the DRDO. Very little by the private sector as yet. But DRDO licenses its technologies free of cost for the most part to the private sector as well, and many of them are increasingly taking advantage of this. And we are talking about, we have our SIDM president here, and one of the orders he's got is a DRDO design. In fact, 2 orders. One more is coming, I think. Both of those are Indian designs, so from DRDO. So yeah, I mean, access to technology is not an issue. In fact, DRDO does not even charge royalty for it when it comes to these technologies that they're licensing for our defense forces. Incidentally, my own view is that we should start perhaps charging a little bit, at least a token amount, because otherwise it's not valued and it's not, perhaps put to as good a use as it could be. So technology is largely from, in addition to, DRDOs and indigenous technology, you could have, for example, in areas where India doesn't have the TRL level as yet, for example, the higher category of drones, the MALE and the HALE class of drones, if we insist on domestic production, the companies, both in the private and in the public sector, will have to tie up technologies from outside. Right. We will encourage that, but the intent is that the actual manufacturing should take place within the country.
You mentioned about charging a bit on the DRDO technologies. Should they also be bid in an open?
Yeah, so I'm saying that, I mean, you should charge some royalties. Otherwise, in India, nothing gets valued if you give it away free. That was the
it's like water to the farmers. Let me dig a little deeper into this idea of defense PSUs. There are a large number of them, and what is the government and your broad view of the role that defense PSUs should play in this country? And I ask it particularly with reference to the recent the defense policy that was announced a week ago, where for the first time the defense PSUs were denied this right of no objection to a border. So, I mean, in light of that, how do you see the role of defense PSUs in this country at a time? Probably there are some voices that are being raised also that have defense PSUs been made orphans. How would you respond, and how do you see the overview, your government's overview on defense PSUs?
So we have, I think, 16 central PSUs now, including the 7 new ones, which are the corporatization of the earlier ordnance factories. The document that you're mentioning, the new revenue procurement manual, talks only about one particular type. It's basically ammunition of different types, artillery shells, etc., where there used to be the system that you first take an NOC from the Munitions India before you go to the private sector, and as a result, private sector had no incentive to invest in this area at all. And how will you build surge capacity on the basis of a couple of units of MIL if you happen to need enough ammunition for a long duration war? So yeah, that particular provision is deleted, but as I mentioned earlier, the MIL's first mover advantage in terms of access to technology, to land, to including some elements of capex that the government gave it will not change. They will just have to compete, and hopefully that will make them also more efficient. In general, PSUs in the recent past have done very, very well, given the large numbers of orders they have, including a large number of export orders. So I think you can rest assured that public sector will continue to flourish in this country, and in my view, competition will make them flourish even more.
Defense PSUs, and then I will be failing in my duty if I don't talk to you about the ordnance companies. There was a time when they are also PSUs now. There was a policy that was taken about a few years ago, but they were corporatized.
That's right.
And when they were corporatized, there was this expectation that they will turn the corner, they will do better. And what I read recently was that apart from one of those ordnance corporations, so to say, except the one based in Nagpur, everyone else, which one is doing well. Now, how do you see this ordnance companies now, no longer directorates or anything? How they are shaping up? In which direction are they moving in the entire defense space?
So, one of the unfortunate results of the geopolitical turmoil is that all of them, except one that you mentioned, are flush with orders, including export orders, and as a result, they are all in making good profits. And the same situation will continue because there will be a large number of domestic orders that, of course, they will also have access to. So I'm not worried about them. They still have some levels of capex support that was promised to them when they were corporatized. So that process is also on to expand their capacity. As I mentioned, you need to expand capacity in some of these companies, given the challenging geopolitical scenario for the country and our neighborhood. So yeah, I mean, as I said, they are doing very well, and they will continue to do well, given the nature of in the way the world is changing and the way defense expenditure is going up around the world. So nothing to worry about as far as the ordnance companies, ordnance board units that have now been corporatized are concerned.
Defense PSUs, defense companies, and obviously defense research. And you talked about DRDO's role, how DRDO is sharing technology with companies, private sector and public sector. Is there any vision that the government has on making defense research something like DARPA of the US, where it is not just having the cutting edge technology, it is also actually helping private sector acquire new technologies and develop them further? How is DRDO being viewed, and where is DRDO in the context of that DARPA yardstick?
So I'll talk about DRDO, but before that, let me talk about the sort of public and the private sector and how the government sees its role. As I said, in fact, the Honorable Prime Minister also made this comment during the Joint Combined Commanders Conference in Kolkata last week, that we have to see the public and the private sector as a hybrid dual-use pipeline when it comes to contributing to India's defense requirements. This is how other countries also see them. They provide jointly the industrial strength to meet our capability requirements, and which is why all the reforms that I mentioned, including on the licensing side, on the supply side, and on the procurement side, which is the demand side, are, many steps have already been taken, and we'll take more to ensure that this dual use kind of a hybrid pipeline really develops, where public sector contracts can involve a work share with a private sector company as well, and vice versa. Some of that is already happening, and I want to see more of that happening, so that we do what is often called a whole of industry kind of an approach when it comes to meeting our capability requirements. Coming back to DRDO, DRDO has done great work for the country, but there are also areas where we need to move much faster in terms of the delivery schedule for some of the technologies that they have been developing. How do we do that? Does it require some level of institutional restructuring of DRDO? And can DRDO, can the labs become more independent in terms of level of decentralization? Do we provide the private sector greater access to the labs and to the testing infrastructure there? All of those things are actually being discussed in detail in the government right now. But I mean, beyond that, I can't speak much. It's a matter of discussion. But yes, some kind of a restructuring of DRDO to improve its ability to deliver technology platforms quicker is something that I think the government is working on.
And which can help the private sector as well.
That's right. Yes.
Okay. That's very, very reassuring, actually. You used this expression, hard power and soft power, while you were talking about defense. I have got this quote from you, where you said that there's a need to back our soft power as hard power is becoming more and more critical. What, in your view, should define a credible threshold of hard power for India in the light of challenges ahead?
Yeah, so I think we should have, ideally overwhelming asymmetry vis-a-vis our Western adversary, deterrent capacity vis-a-vis our northern adversary, and overwhelming dominance in the entire Indian Ocean region. I mean, those are the three areas which I would see we should have, and we should have that combination of industrial and technological superiority backed up by, by numbers in terms of our, weapons and platforms to back those three, key areas that I mentioned.
You think we are moving in that direction?
We are working hard in terms of moving in that direction. And in that area, I would also like to mention that we need to ensure that in our island territories, we have sufficient defense capability to really command some of these Indian Ocean areas, including the Malacca Straits, sufficiently to ensure that people think twice, and that when it comes to the Indian Ocean, we should remain the predominant power.
Okay. Let me turn to the reforms that you mentioned, that the moving away from the traditional nomination-based, cost-plus procurement-centered, the public sector towards a more competitive model. At what stage are you in evolving and announcing that kind of a perfect model for any order placement?
So there are three sort of steps we took. One is that within the existing DAP 20, which was which has been around for the last so many years, there we've to start with, we simply compressed some of the timelines. Essentially, we've said that where, for example, the cost negotiations could go on for 1 or 2 years, we've essentially accepted an accountability that we'll do it in not more than 3 months. Trials, similarly, we've tried to sort of reduce the timelines. As a result, you mentioned that your colleague mentioned earlier that we did record contract signings last year, and this year, incidentally, we are en route to breaking that record again. So one is compressing timelines, accepting greater accountability in terms of our different levels of decision making within the existing procedure. The other step is to reform that book itself, the DAP 2020, which is a voluminous 600-page book, very difficult to read, very, very opaque in some ways, because it tries to take care of every contingency and tries to ensure it's a very kind of fail-safe kind of a mechanism. But it has done well, it has withstood the test of time, but now we need to make it simpler, ensure, specific runways for startups, for example, and for Indian design to be given a greater focus. So all of those are, that particular work is underway right now. We have a committee working on it, headed by the former DG Acquisition, and they are interacting with industry, including SIDM, of which Mr. Bhatia is the president, and with the services. So the target I've given them is by December, we'll have a new defense acquisition procedure handbook. The other part that we've already done is something that we call the revenue procurement manual, which only looks at the consumables at the army, and that's also a huge amount. That's also about 1 lakh crore. Our capex is about 1,80,000 crores, but the revenue procurement also is about 1 lakh crores. And there are 2-3 steps we've taken. You mentioned some of those in terms of removing reservation, making GEM the more normal process for products that are civilian use or dual use, vehicles of different types, various types of consumables. All of those, the armed forces can now straight away buy from GEM without going through elongated procedures. And of course, there is greater flexibility in terms of decentralization of power, greater financial powers to the forces at different levels, etc. So these are 3 areas that we've focused on. DAP 20 will be revised by the end of the year. Revenue procurement manual already revised. And within DAP 20, the procedural timelines have been slashed, which the result of which you see in terms of much faster contract signings over the last 2 years.
Okay, thank you for this. So by December, we will have that first system, you're saying.
That's the target I've
That's the
given them.
target
I'm
you are
hoping
giving,
they can do it. Maybe, you
Yeah.
know, I think we should be able to do it.
Able
Yeah.
to do that. Okay. You know, when you're talking about defense, probably we are also not, probably we are ignoring the role of one startups, you know. Uh, what is the state of, particularly in the tech area, what is the role of defense startups? Is that something that is springing up? Are there signs of those tech startup ecosystem in the defense area? Because they do have many non-defense applications as well. So how do you see that startup space?
So defense actually is the only central government department which has a structured scheme under which startups can be funded from based on funded up to the prototype level, and thereafter we give them a limited order. I mean, that is one of the areas we are going to change. That if you've developed something in-house, or rather indigenously within the country, helped a startup reach a certain level, you shouldn't let him thereafter go on his own without giving him a more assured, a larger order. What we are giving right now is a very token kind of an order. So that is one of the areas we intend to achieve. Otherwise, what happens is that these startups sometimes get bought out, or they sell out quickly to some venture capital fund because they don't have enough access to capital and the orders are not forthcoming. So that's one of the areas we'll tackle. But as I said, defense is one area where startups have access to a structured scheme called IDEX and Aditi, where we can fund up to 25 crores, I think, which we intend to make it to 50 crores now. That scheme will be expanded. I think the maximum size will be increased to 50 crores, and as I mentioned, the assured orders will also increase. And in the new revenue procurement model, we've also said that where a startup or an Indian company develops something specifically for the armed forces, for something that is a custom made for us, we should be giving him a certain amount of time, say 4 or 5 years, where we give him an assured order, at least for meeting that requirement over that 5-year period. We need to keep it limited because otherwise it becomes a monopoly and there is a temptation to start extorting money. But we will create that kind of a runway in the capital side as well.
You have a policy on this in place already, or you are planning to?
The IDEX, it's a scheme, the startup scheme which is called IDEX, basically funds, it goes out to the startup community with a problem statement, and then based on the inputs, it selects some and funds them up to the prototype stage level. The feeling is that after we fund some prototypes, like say 10 or 15, then we'll sort of let him compete rather than giving him a slightly, longer pipeline of orders for a longer period of time. And that is what I intend to do in the future. But there are cases where we funded procurement, we funded the design stage, and we've tried to give him a slightly, larger order as well. But we want to make that institutionalized under the new DAP 20.
Okay. Why I'm asking this question to you is also because, the larger companies who are in the defense space probably can deal with the monopsony situation where a single buyer. And where the startup space, they are young outfits. How do they deal with the monopsony situation of a single buyer? So is there something that you need to do to give them that support, or is there I leave it to you. I mean,
so the monopsony situation will not change. I mean, by definition, military equipment will not be bought by anybody other than us, and maybe to a limited extent for smaller calibers, the paramilitary forces and the Ministry of Home Affairs for small arms and ammunition. So that will not change. What you can do is, as I said, try to create some liberal windows and runways for the startups who are branching out, and overall create a situation where not only do you create a level playing field, but you create a situation where the vendors down the chain, for example, Bharat Forge or L&T or HAL, they have this huge chain of vendors, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. your system should be such that the vendors can also, over time, move up the value chain and become OEM manufacturers themselves. That is the kind of ecosystem that government would like to provide, leveraging its buying power.
You mentioned in one of your responses that defense is one area where the not the permit but the license definitely continues. May not, I think even permits, there's still a license permit Raj that operates in the defense industry. Can you give us a sense of the future reforms scenario on the defense industry?
Yeah.
And where license permit Raj will also be a thing of the past? Or what are the new reform areas that you think should be attempted?
So I don't think the license Raj can be taken away entirely in defense, because when you are manufacturing lethal equipment of military grade or higher explosives, obviously you can't just de-license it entirely. And in this country, of course, we license even our small arms. Even so the question of entire industry is not being licensed does not really arise. What you can do is make it a little simpler for them, or ensure that, for example, if somebody applies for a license, it shouldn't take 2 years for him to get it. When I was in DPIIT, we tried to sort of improve it to the extent possible. I think now the commitment from most of the delay takes place when it comes to what we call the security clearances by the security agencies, and including the state government, the state home departments. The commitment we've taken from them is that they will try to complete this in 3 months, because I was actually saying that we should even make it deemed licensing beyond a certain time frame. I don't think that will pass. It's a bit too radical for our system. So what we are looking at probably is a commitment that licensing will be expedited, and not more than 3 months will be taken. And other elements of the licensing system in terms of import licensing and export licenses, those are other areas where we are trying to sort of ease things out through a single window, through
process reforms.
Process reforms, essentially. You can't change it, but there are also areas which you can change totally. I remember when I was in DPIIT, the licenses that industries used to have, arms industries used to be for 3 years, and after every 3 years you need to come for a renewal, which meant that by the time you set up a unit, you'll again need a fresh renewal with the entire merry-go-round of security clearances, etc. So now we've made it 15 plus 3. So essentially, for 18 years, you can rest assured you are, you can invest and hopefully find markets within the country and abroad. And those kind of process reforms is what can be done in this space. Entirely doing away with the licenses does not seem feasible.
Okay. Will you like to take a couple of questions from the floor? Yeah. So I think I have I tried to light up some fires, but I think I've failed. Maybe there are some questions. Please go ahead. Identify yourself and make it a question.
Just a question about corporatization of the ordnance. Recently, 141 guns, Nisharang guns of the artillery were found defective and rejected by the Indian Army. When I was in service, we had a similar problem with our T-72 barrels at that point of time. So we seem to have moved a full circle after corporatization of ordnance factories, and we have 7 defense PSUs now. So my question is, what has changed or what has not changed? Because the results on quality control are still the same. Second is that what kind of checks and balances are we ensuring to ensure that our metallurgy requirements, and especially when we use steel and when we use alloys and things like that, why should we be making the same mistakes again and again?
Yeah. So I mean, the short answer to your question is that indigenization is a tough road. It's not going to be easy, and nobody said it's going to be easy. But we have to persist with this, and we do have at least one a new pipeline of artillery guns being made in India, ATACs, which have passed all the trials. And generally, the feeling is that our trials are probably one of the most detailed and onerous in the world. And if people pass those trials, generally the feeling is that they can, work anywhere. So yeah, I mean, quality control, it is an issue and it needs to be tackled. I thought the private sector actually feels that DGQA is often very, very tough on them. And I don't know, maybe they are not sufficiently tough on the public sector. I really wouldn't know about the specific case, but I mean, we have to double down on this indigenization effort, and if it requires improvements in our quality control agencies, including perhaps bringing in quality control agencies, not necessarily confined to DGQA. You look at other agencies as well, and also create green channels for credible manufacturers who are enabled to self-certify their products. All of that will also have to be seen. So while you weed out the poor manufacturing practices, you also need to incentivize those who are doing well or whose manufacturing quality meets our requirements. We start giving them the pass to self-certify as well. So I would say, yes, both carrot and stick will have to be applied in this.
So both carrot and stick. Mr. Saran, would you like to ask a question? No? Okay.
Sir, I'm Group Captain Narang from IDSA.
Please identify yourself.
I'm Group Captain Narang from MP IDSA. I'm a scholar there. I have technical review of projects which get delayed or there are challenges. Most of the reviews are based on CAG reports and not the technical in the true sense where you can do the course corrections and do the changes. The second is spiral development. Let's say Kaveri engine or let's say mail programs. Once the prototype is made, thereafter we don't review and do the spiral development. Let's say phase 2 or Mark 2 of that. And third, sir, design and testing infrastructure. Let's say high altitude things. So if you can just comment on these. Thank you.
So I'll take the last question first. Design and testing infrastructure, including a national testing range. Hopefully, we tried in the last budget. We'll try again, and I think now the DPR is getting ready, so hopefully we'll get that done and give equal access to the private sector to that range. The other two points that you made, I mean, it's not really a point. I think it was a suggestion, and I actually agree with you entirely. We have to focus on spiral development, which is what I hinted at when I talked about startups and giving them assured orders down the line so that they can improve and upgrade. And that applies across the board also. We should stop giving piecemeal orders to people. We should give our private sector, our indigenous industry, private and public, adequate orders and visibility in terms of orders to ensure that they can perfect their platforms and systems over time. And we'll, as was mentioned by our colleague, it could lead to setbacks in the short run, but the idea is that the setbacks in development are really learnings as well, and we should be able to sort of learn from that and develop even more robust platforms.
Yeah. This lady here.
Hi, sir. I'm Neha Mishra from British High Commission. I just wanted to ask about the indigenization. When we talk about indigenization, obviously we are focusing on IPR, design indigenization as well. But there is also one element which we need to focus on is securing the resources and reducing the import dependency. So obviously we know that India is doing a lot. We have the National Critical Mineral Mission and Critical Mineral Policy also. But what are your thoughts on the same? What more can be done by India to secure our resources as well as supply chain for the future so that we can reduce the dependency on countries like China and others? And yeah, just wanted to check your thoughts on that. Thank you, sir.
So you've answered your question that we are working on this national critical mission. Some auction is already on. The second round of auctions is underway right now. Aside from that, what could we do? We've been actually thinking about, and this is my colleagues in the Department of Defense Production have been thinking about whether we should build a national stock ourselves of critical minerals and metals where there is an imminent need, and we're not very sure whether our indigenous sources will be forthcoming immediately. So yeah, as a kind of a short term interim measure, you could look at building some national inventories as well to tide over any immediate requirements as well. Yeah, but in the long run, you'll have to hopefully be able to. I think India does have reasonable stocks of critical minerals by all accounts, and we should be better able to utilize it in the future.
There was one question from here, and then second question there.
Sir, thank you for allowing me. Sir, Shruti Ranjan from Bloomberg, sir. If you could give us an understanding on the budget, because across the world we see defense budgets going up. Will that be the same in India, and by how much, sir?
Across the world, budgets are moving up on often on a stagnant GDP. India, our GDP is growing in nominal terms at about 10%. So even though our share of the GDP is quite modest at about 1.9%, the studies that the services have done across the services based on their capability development plans is that a 10% nominal increase on their capex budget is probably enough to meet all of their requirements. So we are very well placed in that sense, given the buoyancy of our economy. Even if we stick at about 2%, there is enough money to meet all their requirements as per the services. It's not my statement. Nonetheless, given the situation around the world, before the Finance Commission, I'm going to project something closer to 17% year-on-year increase. But yeah, I mean, we are very confident that on the modernization budget, there will not be a constraint in terms of resources. The real constraint really is in terms of, one, awarding contracts quickly enough through our system, which is procurement process. Other, and there the onus lies on the industry, that is contract fulfillment. When you get orders, deliver on time. Frankly, most companies are not delivering on time. There are always delays, and I'm not talking about only Indian companies. Across the world, there are tremendous slippages across the world when it comes to contract fulfillment.
This question here. Yeah.
Sir, I am Danveer from DD India. I present a defense program. I want to ask about the Kaveri. There is a great realization in the environment that Kaveri jet engine is a great necessity. So how do you look at the future of Kaveri, sir?
I mean, this is really a question for DRDO. I don't know enough about it, frankly, but the impression I've been given by Chairman DRDO is that the Kaveri engine would be, at the present performance levels, would be most suitable for their UCAV program. That is the impression I've been given, and I think that is what they intend to work on, and of mating it with their future unmanned combat aerial vehicle program.
There's a last question from the floor.
My question partly has been answered by the young lady. My question relates to the supply of rare earth, sir. And I am reading editorials in Business Standard that in India, to restart a mine at least takes 10 to 15 years. So new mines starting is a big challenge in India. And auction scenario, we are seeing that people are not able to run the mines. So how do you think that India can secure the rare earths, which is very critical for defense sector? And because this new age technology, new age weapons require those rare earths. So is there any interministerial plan between Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Environment to expedite that? That is my concern. Thank you.
So you've asked the question at the right time, because it just so happens that about 2 weeks back, the Ministry of Mines asked Department of Defense to make a case before MOEF that critical minerals are being a strategic necessity. We should ease out the environmental processes for mines dealing with critical minerals, and I'm happy to report to you that based on our letter, the Ministry of Environment has already issued that notification so that these will be treated as strategic projects with faster environmental processing. I think the requirement for public consultations, etc., has been waived. So hopefully that will compress some of the timelines that you mentioned when it comes to critical minerals. But the rest of it, I think it's really a question for the Department of Mines and MOEF to answer.
Thank you. I think we had a very useful and informative session. Thanks to Mr. Singh. But I cannot let you go, Mr. Singh, without my asking you the last question, which is that what would be your advice to Blueprint team we need to be mindful of and we need to focus on as an editorial product which can enhance and secure the confidence and trust of its readers? Your advice to us.
No, I mean, you don't need my advice, but you've been very brave in launching this magazine in the digital era, as your, the first speaker mentioned. Advice would be that follow on with the, the kind of work that Business Standard does. I mean, whenever I've interacted with them, with any of your correspondence, there is this attention to verification, to, ensuring that you're not misquoted, ensuring that you don't, sensationalize, and you try to be authentic, and you try to ensure that you don't rush to print with something without getting it vetted by the authorities, so to speak. So yeah, I mean, follow that same journalistic tradition of authenticity and verification, and I'm sure you'll do very well.
And thank you very much. And our commitment to you is that we will follow that principle. And with this, I will hand it back to Vinu. Take it over from here.
Is it on? Yeah, thank you very much. Quite a wonderful discussion, and AKB, I don't think you left any question, unasked over there. Thank you very much, Mr. Singh, for your time and for, responding to everything. Would we just have the memento, please? Thank you very much, and very significant points over there. The need to double down on indigenization, which has become all the more important after Operation Sindoor. And of course, the way the world is looking inwards now, country after country. The capability, the criticality of the IPR staying within the country, and private sector participation in the entire play, whether it's fighters, ships, missiles, and ammunition. We will begin with the next conversation, the next discussion shortly. Give us 2 minutes, and thank you very much for your patience.
business standard has long covered defense, security, and strategic affairs with depth and accuracy. Blueprint is a new space within that tradition, focused on reporting, analysis, and perspective on defense, security, and strategy. It is about understanding India's push for self-reliance in defense as it fits into the changing global order.
Reports, analysis, and views on defense and strategy are complex and layered. Even more than general news and business news, they need context and reporting that enhances understanding. Blueprint is our attempt to create that experience for you.
With Blueprint, we are bringing the same values to defense and geopolitical reporting through authoritative voices, compelling storytelling, and a very exciting digital format that bridges the digital and print format.
We wanted to create something that works in both print and digital. The idea was not to replicate the newspaper, but to build a magazine that allows readers to sit with long curated pieces, deep analysis, and in-depth coverage. Blueprint is designed to be explored, not just skimmed.
For a reporter, Blueprint provides the opportunity to take a story beyond the official version, to chase it across borders, to link local developments with global strategy, and to assess how new technologies are changing the battlefield. That sort of journalism requires space, and this magazine provides it.
Defense and geopolitics are often considered subjects that have little bearing on the general public, that they are limited to military matters or foreign policy. But these two worlds are connected to technology, the economy, as well
Okay,
as
ladies and
to
gentlemen,
society.
request everybody
In
to
the
please settle
Blueprint
down. We're
magazine,
just beginning with the
we
next
bring together
session. And once again, please, another request, kindly put your phones on silent. So the Defense Secretary emphasized the need for, private participation. He also spoke about the need to double down on indigenization and how the critical role the private sector will play in that. And our next conversation flows wonderfully from that because, besides government's policies, the private sector's role is critical in India's ambitions of becoming a self-reliant, resilient power, more so at a time when country after country is looking inwards. The Business Standard editor spoke about the weaponization of commerce in this direction. The question now is, have reforms around defense manufacturing benefited the private industry, and are we seeing greater private participation in the sector? To discuss this, I would like to welcome Mr. Rajinder Singh Bhatia, Chairman of Defense Business Kalyani Group and President of the Society of Indian Defense Manufacturers Association. Mr. Bhatia. Mr. Bhatia is an army veteran and a prominent defense industry leader with over 50 years of experience. As chairman of Kalyani Strategic Systems Limited, the defense subsidiary of Bharat Forge, he has steered the company to the forefront of indigenous artillery systems development. Bharat Forge is a leader in this domain, having developed advanced platforms such as the Advanced Towed Artillery Gun System. In a conversation with him will be my colleague Bhaswar Kumar. Request Bhaswar to please come on stage. Okay, over to you.
So, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good to have you here with us, Mr. Bhatia.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you so much.
So, the theme that we have today flows from a question: have reforms benefited the industry? Very quickly, long before I was a journalist, about 13 years ago, Defense Expo, you'll remember. you showed us a massive gun. For the first time, an Indian company had come in and there was a whole artillery gun. If the audience can imagine, it would have taken up this entire, and it was there in person. It just in the metal, the hole, the barrel, everything there. It took maybe 10 years after that to get an Indian design developed gun to win an order. So those 10 years, reforms took place. How have they benefited the industry? And which one, moved the needle the most, in your opinion?
Thank you, Baswar. Important question. I can get down to the memory lane and probably get a little emotional, but that's not the intent. Firstly, you asked about the journey of reforms. I don't think 10, 12 years ago, Defense Secretary would have come for a event like this and answered so openly all the questions you asked. This itself has changed. Second part, if you take a look at what has happened, let me take you to the little bit of the journey which we went through. It was in 2010 when I joined Bharat Fauj. I was working with Larsen and Toubro for last 8 years, since about 2002. And I was asked, can you make a gun? I think my first reaction was, well, I can make a gun because I knew all resources will be made available. I'm not sure I can sell it. From that position to where we are today is a total sea change. And quite a bit of role in this change has been brought about by reforms. So let me take you on a bit of that journey because it's quite emotionally linked with what we did. So it was 2012, we bought in 2010 we started, in 11 we bought a gun manufacturing plant from Switzerland, Rouag, and brought it to India. 11 commissioned it, then made a team of best engineers possible all over, and set it up and tasked them to make a gun. In 2012, we showed this gun in the Defense Expo, which was held in Pragati Maidan. Nobody believed us. Everybody thought this is one of those imported pieces which we have brought and put it together. But the real struggle started when we wanted to test this gun. Nobody would give us the testing ranges. When we went to the DGQA, and there is the change which has occurred, the first question was, who's the OEM? We said, we are the OEM. He said, what? You can't be the OEM. Get me an OEM certificate if you want to come for the testing. So this journey, this struggle went on for a long time. And it was in 2016-17, in one of the events where, God bless his soul, Mr. Manohar Panikkar, who was the defense minister at that time, sitting in that meeting. It was a seminar in, I think, Vigyan Bhavan. And we brought up this point. Our chairman spoke to them and said that, take a look. I made a gun. I had to send it to United States to test it. And we actually did send it to US, to Rock Island Arsenal, to test the first prototype. And I think there were a lot of red faces in that hall. And thereafter, the journey started about allowing private industry to start testing their wares. Today, we are talking about setting up of testing ranges, the modern ranges, where equal participation by private and public sector. So it's a big journey. But this also answers many more questions. It was in 2019 that we got the DSC approval for it. 150 guns. And we are talking about spiral development. It's only in 2025 that we got the order to manufacture these guns for Indian Army. But before that, we had sold it to 2 more countries, which the orders have already been completed. So this does tell that our journey has been fabulous on this particular path, so-called the reforms. But then, well, you also heard Raksha Mantri say that this is the year of reforms. So obviously this is a work in progress. This is not actually finished. We need to continue to move this path actually to make the difference. I hope I have answered your question.
So it's been a journey for those 10 years.
Of course.
Because having to take the gun out, fire it in the US, bring it back to prove that it works, it must have been quite the journey to get it to actual orders. So, in fact, our colleague has written in our magazine, in the debut edition, that India builds the arsenal, others fire it first. Because export orders came before the domestic order came for your gun. So, we've had that reform process. As the secretary mentioned, there will be a reform manual for procurement of weapons and systems, which should maybe come out by December, optimistically come out by December. But where do we stand today after those 10 years of reforms? Because as our defense production has gone up, and of course, the total number, the absolute number, the private sector's contribution to that has also gone up. But the percentage range has remained, 19 to 22, 23%. So how do you break out of that?
Okay, so if you ask about where we are, defense acquisition or building the defense capability in a nation is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not a 100-meter run. In marathon, where we are probably crossed the halfway mark, but there's still a lot of distance to go. And when will we cross that distance? We talked about GRF reforms. We talked about many other things to happen. Coming down to the issue regarding the private sector and where do we stand? If you take my company, we were probably at less than 2 digits 12 years ago, and we have crossed 4 digits with big marks in the last 2 years as far as defense production is concerned. So there is a major change. But is that the potential? Potential of Indian industry is much bigger. In fact, this reminds me of what President Roosevelt once said, future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams. And he built an empire for the United States. He built, if you read that book, Freedom Forge, you will realize what all US did in those 5 years. Something like 235,000 fighter aircrafts were built by United States in 5 years' time. So potential, I don't think has a upside. There's a great potential in this country. India of 2025 is much stronger, both technically as well as manufacturing. So if United States could do this so many years ago, we can do that too. But like Defense Secretary was mentioning in the morning, he was talking about that it's not the budget constraints, it's also our ability to spend, which means we need to reform our acquisition process. We need to take care of how fast we do it. There is a technology cycle. If technology can evolve, a product can be developed, say, in 3 to 5 years, you cannot have an acquisition cycle which is longer than that. If the acquisition cycle is longer than the product development cycle, what you're going to be getting is the items which are not going to be the state of art. So it is exceedingly important that we cut down that acquisition cycle. Now, what is it meaning? It will have a dual impact. One is that industry's investments will become much faster because you're able to turn around your investments in a faster way. You're also able to plan. Secondary, what Defense Secretary mentioned, our ability to spend will be much more if your acquisition cycles are much shorter. So my point here is that this is a journey. It's not going to come to any place and any time. This is going to remain a work in progress for all the time because the future is going to change. Along with that, we'll need to keep changing. Let's keep moving on this journey. I think the destination will reach sometime.
So just to press you a little on that, when you say the acquisition timeline has to be crunched, the secretary mentioned the DAP 2020. For those who are uninitiated, that means the Defense Acquisition Procedure 2020, and it is indeed a very big manual. I have tried to read it from page 1 to the last, and it is difficult. But even in DAP 2020, the timeline that is mentioned, there's that diagram. It's not a bad timeline. It's just that slippages keep happening. So do you think just crunching the timeline is enough, or would you, as the industry, because you're not just Kalyani, you are also SIDM, so you talk on behalf of all the Indian private companies who are in defense. Do you think perhaps an enforcement mechanism is required to ensure that the timelines are adhered to?
So this question can be answered in 2 parts. We talked about policy reforms. I think policy reforms are mostly in place. But procedural reforms, operationalization of that policy is really the crux which goes behind the timelines. If you take a look at timeline which was there in DAP 2020, is 36 months. And I would tend to disagree. This audience seems to extremely well, I would say, aware of DAP. Everybody seemed to be asking questions which were quite pointed questions. So everybody would be knowing what DAP is. So the timelines there is about 36 months. The problem is that those 36 months are actually never met. What we are looking at is an average of 5 to 6 years if it is a good procurement, and maybe 7 to 8 years if it is little delayed. And there are times when 5 years down the line, the tender has just been withdrawn without giving much reasons to it. Now, this is the bad side. But is it only with us? Let me give you a figure. Let's not run down our country unnecessarily. The average time taken in United States of America lies between 8 and 11 years for complex systems. But that is not the model we need to follow. We need to take a look at the countries which can do it much faster. You have examples of South Korea, you have examples of Israel. They are able to do their acquisitions in a much faster time frame. So we need to find those models, take a look at them, learn from them, and implement. And the reason behind this lies because the technology is changing so fast. If you do not sharpen your or cut down these timelines, you will always be picking up equipment which is outdated. Imagine picking up communication equipment in today's scenario, which takes 7 years to acquire. You would have come down from 2G to 3G to 4G, 5G, maybe 7G, and totally different. And what you will be picking up is something which is outdated. So it is the necessity which should be driving this. I think a good timeline for technologies which are changing very quickly, maybe between 18 to 24 months at the most, and other projects maybe about 36 months at the outset. Nothing more than that.
So this brings us to something you mentioned here, technology, because that is what underpins every weapon system, every capability that you seek to acquire. We do see, when you observe what the Indian private industry in particular has been doing, suddenly there is an upsurge in technology. So your peers at L&T, in collaboration with DRDO, in a record time, they're able to build a light tank, which is now undergoing tests. ATAGS is an example. So something that Mr. Bhatia didn't mention, in those 10 years journey, I think there is 1 year where ATAGS set a world record in one of its tests. The artillery gun, how far did it fire? If you remember.
So let me answer that question because that is a single simple answer, half a line. It fired 48 kilometers. Normal guns, which are 155 52 caliber, with the ammunition which is ERF BB, normally fires around 40 to 41 kilometers. But this gun uses a bigger chamber. It can, for the people who are initiated into artillery guns, uses zone 7 bimodular charge system, and because it uses a larger charge system, it has a much bigger range, and it gives you great tactical advantage. In fact, some tacticians will tell you, or strategists will tell you, that your standoff distance increases, which means you cannot come under enemy's counter bombardment. You can sit and pound the enemy's targets, whereas the enemy can't respond back to your gun position.
So continuing on that vein, so technology is there. A lot needs to be developed. But what do you see coming down the barrel the next 5, 6, 7 years from the private industry in particular?
So before I talk about technology and what is coming our way, let me tell you a small little quote. I read it sometime and find it very interesting and like to mention that. It said that any good astronomer can tell where every star would be at 11:30 tonight. Unfortunately, he cannot say the same about his teenage daughter, in brackets, or son. So technology is like the teenager daughter or son. You can't tell in what direction it's going to go. In fact, very interestingly, if you go back and what was the statement of IBM president, in 1977, he said, no home needs a computer. And this is the most qualified man making that statement. So if you are going to follow thinking, looking back into the rear view mirror and thinking where the technology is going, I don't think we'll be ever able to get the perspective. So what do we do? And in fact, here I would like to say, we need to look at what some of the people have projected the direction of technology. So there are 3 things which stand out quite evidently in this path. The first one is technology will change faster than you can imagine. Second part is the future warfares will be based on technology. They always were. They are today and in future too. And it will touch every facet of your life. And the third part which said was that the technology hitherto used to be developed in a military complex, used to find its way into the civilian domain, is now going to get developed in civilian domain and is going to be coming to the military domain. Now this is the general direction. So what do? We do not know what shape it is going to take, but these are the contours. India is a country, very large country. We have people who are brilliant, who have built the ecosystem in many countries around the world without mentioning that. Even today, if you look at global capability centers, India has GCC for every major OEM in the world. So Indian engineers have that capability. So what do you need to do? You need to spread out the technology development so that let there be a million startups. Why few thousand? If there are a million startups in defense and aerospace, I'm sure all facets of future development will get addressed.
So coming to startups, it is a very dynamic area. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who are getting in, but the secretary was here with us, and there is a quote that he mentioned once that of all the drone startups that we have in this country, maybe 4 can make something which is up to a military standard. This is not to say that startups should not come up. What I'm trying to ask is, both for startups and for the industry, like you said, there is technology, there is talent. So could you identify that one, perhaps that one, hurdle or something, whatever it is that's holding them back, that that perhaps the government or policymakers really need to do away with so that things can get going?
I'd say the government does not need to do away, government needs to do something. And let me tell you what they need to do. If you take a look at startup journey and any technological innovation done anywhere in the world, 80% are going to fail. Because how does technology get developed? A group of people have an idea, they try to put that idea into practice, and they come out with something which is either going to be a breakthrough technology or a transformative technology. Now, in startup ecosystem, if you take a look, there are about 4 stages, which are extremely important stages. The first stage is conceiving the idea. Second stage is putting funding and converting it to a prototype, which was mentioned in the morning. And then comes what we call the valley of death. He's got the funding for the idea. He's developed a prototype. He probably has met 80% of the requirements. For next 20%, neither has the money, nor he has the support to take him through because the funding is finished. And that is the valley of death, where 80% of them die. Now you need to find a way to negotiate these startups through this valley of death. And for that you need handhold. And that's where it comes that a concept may have been formulated, a prototype is ready. Now taking that prototype to next level, giving him not those basic 4 or 5 orders, but giving him a view so that either he can attract funding from the market or he can hang on to an anchor industry so that he can develop that particular technology into a product and take it into a technological product which gets assimilated, which is the 5th stage when its assimilation takes place with the armed forces. So right now what we are doing is we are seeing stage 1 and 2. We need to take them through stage 3 so that they can become 4 and 5. This is not to say that this startup ecosystem has really not taken off. There is a sentiment in the market, and Business Standard knows better than sentiments when you talk about stock exchange and stocks in the country. There is a sentiment today which is extremely positive. Even with 1.5 crore, which is what TIDEX initial grant is, and he has to make a parallel expenditure of 1.5 crores of his own, we started off with 3,000 startups. And if you roll back before 2018 or 19 when this scheme came, there was hardly not even 10 startups in India. Today there are 3,000 registered, 1,100 out of them have already got orders. But I would say that neither 1,100 nor 3,000 are sufficient for a country like India.
How many do we need?
Maybe 100,000. Why not?
100,000.
Just, I'll give you a figure which I can share with you. Startup India has 1,57,000 startups which are registered with them. Out of them, 33,000 are in technology areas. Out of them, 9,000 are towards defense and aerospace. Successful one, you can count on fingertips. So what we need is, we need many, many more. If you compare this figure with a country like, say, Israel, our figures will be much, much lower as per capita. So what we need is to ensure that we are able to create ecosystem where we can have large number of startups.
So when we talk about support, the government has also sought support. Recent comments from the defense minister, the secretary mentioned it, and it seems to be the buzzword. And companies like yours will have to play a role there. Surge capacity. That if we are pushed to it, we should be able to develop whatever we need in sufficient quantity. Are we there yet? Especially the private sector, is it there yet? Can it support this requirement of the country?
Let me give you two examples which may be slightly contrarian in themselves. If you take a look at that, 5 years ago, we were not even making a gun a month. Today, we are the largest manufacturer of artillery guns in the world. We make almost 6 to 8 every month, and we can scale it up to 10 to 12 per month. The other side would be that scalability is possible if we are sure as and when the orders would come in, which means if there is surety of timeline, you will be prepared to invest, because everything cannot be taken on one particular parameter and decided. I think private industry is prepared to invest, and the feeling would be that we are probably not invested enough so far. I tend to agree with that, but we are prepared to invest if there is a little clarity. If today we move on from NCNC to NCFC, which means no cost but full commitment, or full cost and no commitment, which is FCNC model, you will find that people will start gearing up for this manufacturing well in time. We also need to tweak some of our procedures. Like today, Defense Secretary mentioned, we have an order for 8X guns. I am prepared to start manufacturing them tomorrow, investing our money, but we cannot, because the contract says that you cannot start manufacturing before the contract has been inked. So some of these clauses, second clause is, there is a trial of a gun tower gun, which is the truck which needs to go for trials. It needs to pass some more tests. I can't manufacture guns because the tower has not been put through. So we need to tweak these things so that the investment cycles can start. I'm sure India has enough money. If the clarity and the timelines are known, we'll be prepared to invest much more.
So, Mr. Bhatia, as we come to a close to our session, as our editorial director and the secretary also pointed out, we had the DPM, the Defense Procurement Manual, come out, and there was a gift in it, if one can call it that, for the private industry, which was parity. So is this a Dil Mange More moment for you? Because there's another policy coming out, and there is a promise of parity there too, of the level playing field. You're confident that you'll get it?
So dil to bacha hai, it always mange more, but you have better information of DPM than we do. Actually, DPM has not yet been released. It is only the information which you are sharing and some people are sharing. As of yesterday, I had asked my team again to approach. They have only issued out a DIP statement saying that it has been approved. It has not yet been released in total. So it should get released in 3 to 4 days' time, wherein I'll be able to answer your question. But whatever we have heard from the Defense Secretary in the morning, all sound music to ear. Let's see what all comes out, and if there is a... But DPM is only a small part of acquisition. It is only the routine revenue procurements which have already been acquired. We'd like to see the shape of DAP when it comes out, and hopefully from... It's not 600, with its annexure is 1,000 pages. I hope this gets a little reduced to maybe about 100 odd pages, so that you and me can assimilate it much better.
So basically what Mr. Bhatia is telling us is that he will not count his chickens before time.
Before they are hatched.
He wants to see the fine print, the ink on paper, and see that things have worked out. Thank you for your time, Mr. Bhatia. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bhatia. Could we have the momentum, please? Thank you very much. You know, marathon and not a sprint. That's where it is when it comes to manufacturing defense. Thank you so much. Still halfway there, but yet to match the potential that India has to offer. An important point over there in the need for acquisition reforms, cut down the acquisition cycle, policy reforms, while they are mostly in place, what is needed are procedural reforms, bringing down timelines and offering the surety of timeline for orders and acquisitions. Thank you so very much. Next up is an interaction with Dr. V. Narayanan, the chairperson of the Indian Space Research Organization. A cryogenic engineer and rocket scientist, Dr. Narayanan has been with ISRO since 1984. An IIT Kharagpur alumnus. Among other things, he is leading ISRO's ambitious manned mission program, Gaganyaan, and also the Chandrayaan-4 missions, besides the aspiration of launching India's first space station. My colleague Shatrupa Bhattacharya will be in a conversation with him on a high-interest topic, India's space vision, and how the country's space strategy is aligned with national security.
Thank you, Venu. Dr. Narayanan, good afternoon, everyone. You took charge of ISRO in January. And before that, you were heading the Liquid Propulsion Systems Center. Which job is more interesting?
For us in ISRO, every day is interesting day and every job is interesting job.
That is a good answer. So now if you could tell us a little bit in brief, although I will ask you a bit about different missions, but briefly if you could tell us how India is contributing to world space science, because it's one of the few countries with the expertise to do so. And I watched you taking a number of phone calls, so I'm guessing that a lot of activity is happening behind the scenes.
Space science is very, very important area. First, I want to tell before going how we are contributing, what we have done to improve the space science area. You know, the entire the space activities we have kept under 5 verticals. We kept under 5 verticals. And the activity was started in the year 1962, and we worked under 5 verticals. First vertical was space transportation system, where we deal with all launch vehicle and associated technologies. Second one, space infrastructure, satellite and associated technologies. Third one was space application. You know, today there are 55 space applications, and the application has to go a long way for improving the standard of living and security of common man of this country. Fourth one was a recent vertical added 5 years back, human space flight program. Next one was the capacity building, because throughout the country we have to build a lot of infrastructure. And after I took over as the chairman of ISRO, just 3 months back, I have formed a new vertical called Space Science and Astronomy vertical, giving due importance so that this area there will be significant contribution. Now to your question, when you talk about space science, we have done a lot of important missions related to the space science. For example, if you talk about the deep space missions or interplanetary missions, Our first interplanetary mission was Chandrayaan 1. And Chandrayaan 1 is the mission which brought really glory to the country, you all know. And along with USA, Chandrayaan 1 is the mission USA and India together found water molecule for the first time on the moon and brought glory to the entire country. And in that mission, one more thing we did, the former president, Abdul Kalam ji gave a fantastic idea. Originally we didn't plan, it was a only orbiter mission. Then we impacted a moon impact probe, thereby we put our tricolor, our national flag on the moon. Of course. Second mission is a Mars. Today, if you take Chandrayaan 1 data, there are so much wealth of data is available for the scientists to do research, other activities. And we have added a lot of value in the science. Take Mars orbiter mission. That is yet another important mission. For the Mars orbiter mission, somebody has to go to red planet. The total distance to be traveled in the path, the elliptical path, is something around 68 crore kilometer. And traveling 68 crore kilometer over a period of something around 297 days we have to travel. And you know, when you travel, the satellite or the orbiter reaches with a velocity something around 25,000 to 27,000 kilometers per hour. And you have to reduce the velocity and capture in the orbit. For reducing the velocity, we had a propulsion system. And I still remember on the day of capture, Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji was sitting in the first floor. And we were all sitting in the ground floor. And it is we who developed the engine for capturing. You can understand, you know, after 295 days, we have to restart the engine. And I think you can understand those who are going on vacation and come back after vacation, 2 months after the vacation, if you start your car, you will understand after 60 days what will happen to the car. And here after 295 days, you have to restart. We are quite confident and we have accomplished and we have succeeded the mission, and India is the only country, first country succeeded a Mars orbiter mission in the first attempt. And lot of scientific data is available from Mars. What type of even hydroxyl molecules are there, what type of things, that is one. Then coming to the Chandrayaan 2. Chandrayaan 2, it was supposed to be a soft landing mission, but it could not soft land, but there were a lot of objectives in that mission. We have placed a orbiter in the moon's orbit. You know who is having best camera in the moon's orbit today? Indian, it is our camera, 32 centimeter camera is the best camera as on available in the moon's orbit. And the best photograph belongs to India. And daily thousands of photos are coming. Thousands. You can Google and find out photographs taken by other orbiters and our orbiter. And it has brought lot of scientific data. I mean, we understand lot of things about moon's topology and lot of things are happening. Then coming to Chandrayaan 3 mission, 23rd August 2023 is a historical day that first time India soft landed on the south pole of moon. Until today, India is the only country which has soft landed near the south pole of moon. Even though we are the 4th country to soft land on the moon, but we are the only country soft landed near the south pole of moon.
And
Now,
also, with a lot of finesse.
Yeah.
The landing was very stylish.
Yeah, it was so stylish and perfect landing. And of course, I was fully involved in that job. I was the expert committee chairman studying the reason for hard landing of Chandrayaan 2. So I know at least in and out of what happened. We have given 107 recommendations and everything was implemented. And Chandrayaan 3, finally after a lot of testing, everything, it was a successful mission. One is soft landing, that everybody knows. Now, we have found out 8 minerals on the moon surface. 8 minerals. And we have found out electron clouds. And we took a probe for measuring the temperature profile. In fact, 10 temperature sensors were used and it was pierced, the probe pierced inside the surface, and we have found out from the surface to down, something around 10 centimeter, the temperature profile variation is something around 80 degree centigrade is the type of thermal gradient variation. And electron clouds we have found out. And we put some sensors to find out. You know, we had a rover. That rover came out and it was going here and there. And then we wanted to understand, is there any seismic activities equivalent to earthquake on this surface of moon? There are places, there are seismic activities. So entire data is put for the donated to the scientific community of the global community. And this is yet another area, lot of things are done. Then comes to AstroSat. You know, it is the first multi-wave.
May I interrupt you for
Yeah.
a minute? Because you're talking about lunar missions. So I'm interested in asking about, the 2040 landing, India's planned landing on the moon. And by then, it would be 71 years since, the first landing on the moon. So what are we looking to find more, or what do we expect from that mission in the future?
Number one, I have to answer a couple of questions to you. You brought 71 years from the first landing. I have to clarify what is that 71 years. Then I have to also say what we are going to do. And number one, our Honorable Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi ji, he has given me a direction and guideline to work on this mission. And the project is yet to be approved, but we are just in the preliminary phase studying. And based on his guideline, we have to land our brothers or sisters, Indians, on the moon using our rocket safely and bring them back safely. Of course, carrying out a lot of experiments by 2040. This is the objective of that mission. Now, when you look at in this mission, you know, when we were working on the Chandrayaan 1 mission or Chandrayaan 2 mission, there were a lot of questions. There are people, lot of people have gone to moon. You know, whenever you talk about a program, there are supporters, there are critics. I think strong critics are required so that we will sharpen our ideas and focus on right direction. And there were a lot of criticism, why it is required for a country like this. But please understand, even though a lot of people have studied moon, India is the first country along with USA found water molecule on the moon. Till our Chandrayaan 1 went, nobody found water molecule on the moon. So this was a great discovery. And we have found minerals on the moon today. And same way, when you talk about this program, number one, it is a technology development program. Lot of robotic science, artificial intelligence, and docking, de-docking, lot of things will get developed. Second thing is, anyhow, we are going to land and we are going to do lot of experiments. And today, if you ask me exactly what is that you are going to discover, I may not have answer. But I am sure Indians are very smart and India is going to bring lot of value addition. Second thing is, you asked in a very lighter vein, not in a criticizing mode. You told after 71 years you are going to land. And dear brothers, we should understand one thing. This question I am facing everywhere. After 71 years you are going to land. 1969, US has landed first time. Neil Armstrong has landed 1969. And we are targeting after 71 years. And somebody asked me very recently also, what is this you are doing? 71 years you are taken to land. But then we should understand, 1969 when US landed, you know, ISRO was just formed. Indian Space Research Organization was formed on 15th August 1969. And we were having a tiny rocket. We were 70 years behind advanced countries. And now you should understand the status of our country. When we got independence in 1949, you know, 97.5% people were below the poverty line. And in the education sector, hardly 12% people were literate. And today that number has gone to 79 to 80%. So, and health, if you take, you know, what was the situation? What is the average life of Indians when we got independence, 1947? Any guesswork? It was just 32 years. 32 years. And I want to tell one practical experience. I am from a village. And there was a disease called cholera. And when I was studying 6th standard, my next village, in 2 days, 40 people passed away. And this was the situation in the country. So what was our priorities at that point of time when Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, not on space? Our priorities were improving the health sector, improving the food, ensuring the food security, and improving our entire country. Hardly 2,815 primary schools were only there. No IITs, no IIMs, no All India Institute of Medical Science, nothing. So our priorities were improving the health sector, improving the education sector, improving the infrastructure development, ensuring food for all our citizens. And of course, after independence, we also had to fight war. And at that point of time, where was the missiles? Nothing was there in our hand, and we had to come a long way. Our priorities were different. And then when ISRO was formed also, Sarabhai, the father of Indian space program, and he started, the priorities were bringing advanced space technology for the benefit of common man. Not on the interplanetary mission, not on the space, the landing on the moon. If somebody would have talked in 1947, landing Indian on moon, what would have been the reaction of the country when people are not having enough to eat at that point of time. So we have come a long way. Today, this is the right time, I feel. We are talking about our landing on the moon. So we need not talk about 71 years. Those things we need not talk. And India is in the right direction, right path. I think this is the time to go for that program. I think Honorable Prime Minister, I have to thank him for his visionary leadership. He has given the direction in the right time.
So, sir, what you are saying is this is the right time that India is ready now to take on more such challenges. The other question is, of course, India, has launched hundreds of satellites over the past few decades, including 4 other countries in the developing world, some other countries in the developing world. And our successful Mars mission, our successful lunar mission, and you have one orbiter going to Venus in some time as well, right?
Yeah.
Before I ask you more about the Venus mission, I want to ask you another question which is linked to this. Promise after that I won't ask you any remotely critical questions. Is that, India has been praised for doing these missions at very low cost, relatively low cost, like the cost of a Hollywood film, less than that, in fact, for a couple of missions. But my question is, why are we taking so long to send our own astronauts in our own space flights?
No, when you talk about a human spaceflight program, number one, I will tell you the program was announced on 15th August 2018 by Honorable Prime Minister, the Gaganyaan program, sending our own Gaganyaan 3s or human being to space and bring them back safely. If you look at, it is not like conventional satellite mission type of program. Here, lot of technology has to be developed. Let me just explain the technology, then come back to your question. Number one, yes, we had rockets, but then we have to do the human-rated rocket development. Human-rated rocket developments, in simple terms, improving the reliability of the rocket by enhancing additional margins, thermal, mechanical, all margins, and also incorporating redundancies wherever it is required. Because the safety of the astronaut or Gaganyaan 3 is the key in this mission. So we cannot take any risk. So we have to human rate the entire launch vehicle. And when you human rate, you have to also demonstrate through large number of test program. Not only theoretical studies, large number of test program. One is human rating of the vehicle. It's an involved job. Second thing is the module in which the human being has to travel. We call it as a orbital module. This is a totally new development, a pressurized compartment we have to develop totally. And we have to ensure if somebody has to travel to space, we have to develop a system called environmental control and safety system. We have to maintain required pressure level, required temperature, required relative humidity, and carbon dioxide has to be kept under control. And everything has to be done in a automatic mode. And then that system, in fact, initially we thought we'll also take support from other countries, but then huge time and huge money was demanded, and we are indigenously developing, and almost I will say 75 to 80% development is completed. Next important development is when people go in the rocket or the moment astronauts are brought to rocket, any undue situation, our responsibility to save the Gaganyaan 3s. And we have to develop a environment and the safety system. We have to have a crew safety system. Basically, assume when the rocket is going, it goes with a velocity up to 28,400 km per second. And that means to save them, we have to have a system which will go with a speed much faster than that. And we have to develop that system and reliably it has to operate, and you have to do number of tests. Then the rocket takes only to something around 170 kilometers. From there, we have to take it to 400 kilometers using set of, again, a new set of engines, propulsion system. All these things has to be developed, conceived, developed, and thoroughly qualified. Qualified means I will tell that engine which is taking to the orbit and keeping them safe, almost something around 70 to 80 hot tests has to be done. And each test I will tell once in 3 weeks only one test can be done. It is not that you do the test, next day you do the next test. You have to do analysis, understand, and nominal condition, half nominal condition. Next, coming back, well, return time, people are rotating with high velocity. And from that, the velocity has to be reduced and they have to come and splash down safely. And something on 9 parachutes have to be developed. And these 9 parachutes have to be tested and qualified under different environments. And this development is we have given to DRDO lab, Agra, they are doing the job. Then human-centric products like spacesuit, medicine, a lot of things has to be done. And it is a technology-intensive project. And even though the project started August 15, 2018, almost we lost 1.5 years because of the COVID situation. And then the entire mission, starting from lift-off to landing, it is an autonomous mission. Set of hardware, software development, and everything has to be tested and verified. I can tell today we have completed almost 85% of the activities. And the entire country is working towards this mission. And human safety is the paramount. So whatever is required towards that we have to do. So it is not that we have taken a lot of time. And 2018 to now 7 years, out of 7 years, almost 1.5 years we lost, 5 years. Maybe in another 1.5 years, 27, first quarter is the targeted mission. And again, before sending the human being, simply we cannot send in the first flight. We are planning 3 uncrewed missions. 3 uncrewed missions. And first uncrewed mission is planned this year, December. And we are going to put a Vayamitra, a half humanoid is going to fly instead of human being. That development is totally completed and it will operate like human being based on the command switches and it can respond. So a lot of work has happened. And 2 more uncrewed missions next year we are planning. Yes, 3 uncrewed missions we want to send and understand whether everything is in order. Then only we are going for the crewed mission. It is really a technology intensive. Entire country is working. When as a chairman of ISRO or Secretary Department of Space, when I look at every day people work almost 24/7. And that is the thing what is happening. I don't look at the project timeline is very important, but key is the safety of astronaut. So people are working. So because of the technology intensive thing, and it takes its time. Otherwise, actually the project is running with the very fast track mode project is running. Probably when you look at from outside, you may think it is slow, but it is not slow.
Sir, can you tell us a bit about or update us on the plans of by when or what's going on now with India's plans to set up the space?
Space station, lot of work is going on. Our Prime Minister has given the guideline to set up the space station by 2035. And we have conceived the total space station. Total space station configuration is conceived. It is a 52-ton mass space station, and 52-ton we cannot lift in a single rocket. And then no country does that. People take multiple modules. So we have conceived to take 5 modules and assemble there. And we have got approval for the first module. And then couple of preliminary activities are done. So 5 modules, first module will be lifted up by 2028. So we are working towards that. And in fact, we displayed in Delhi the 1:1 model last month during the Space Day celebration, and the work is going on. And now after taking there, couple of things has to be done. And when you take the second module, it has to get docked. And we have done a docking experiment. And we have successfully demonstrated. And the docking experiment, just I will tell in a layman language. Imagine in Delhi road, 2 cars are going with 100 km/h speed. One car your father is traveling, another car your mother is traveling. And these 2 cars, with the support of drivers, without stopping in a place, in the movement itself, and both cars velocity has to be adjusted, and you have to connect without hitting. You can understand, in Delhi road, how to go and connect. You can, I think at least you can imagine what is the difficulty involved. I am not telling it is not possible, but the difficulty is it's a highly difficult process. Here, two satellites revolving with 28,000 plus kilometer per hour velocity. Of course, relative velocity is less. And then automatically using a set of cameras, hardware, software, propulsion system, you have to connect, slow the relative velocity, bring near to zero speed, and align, in the space, aligning mechanically in all the three directions, and you have to connect. And it's not that easy job. If it is easy job, every country would have done. And this year, January 16th, we have done the docking experiment. And we are transferring one satellite to power to one satellite to another satellite and disconnected. Again, second time docking. And India is the fourth country which has successfully demonstrated this technology till today. And this technology is required for building the space station. And now what we have done is a technology demonstration. Now next mission we are going to do 1:1 configuration of that BOSS, Bharat Yandri station. Because now it is a small module, we have demonstrated. First itself you cannot put big module and get into a failure, and you cannot waste a lot of money. So we have demonstrated the technology. Now second docking experiment has to be done. Simulating that BAS interface 1:1, we are going through the approval cycles, and we have to get the approval, and then we have to do the experiment. That means the preliminary activities required towards that, we are on the job, on the path. And then building the space station is going on. Next one is, yes, you build the space station. After building the space station, if people like you will ask fantastic questions. What for the space station is? You have built, and so much money you have spent, 2,000 crore. Poor people's taxpayers' money you have spent, and what for it is? I have to answer this question.
No, sir.
And for that also we have taken action. That's why I told the sixth vertical, the science already we have put. And then in fact we are in discussion with various departments, including biotechnology department, and then agricultural department, and various departments and various universities, giving them opportunity to do experiment in the microgravity environment. And then that activity also we have initiated. So it is not only building the space station alone, all associated technology development, all associated thing we are doing. Another thing is, once we put a space station, we are going to have robotic arms. And the space station is meant for a lot of purpose, including catching the satellite when it is rotating, if it is not functioning, catch and try to repair. Or you go to nearby and refuel. Lot of works are to be done. So robotic arm, for the first time in the space, we have demonstrated in one of the POEM experiment this year. We sent a robotic arm and it worked fantastically well. Like that, when we talk about space station, that is one portion, but associated entire development is taking place. And by 2035, based on the guideline by Prime Minister, it will be established successfully in the space, and every Indian can be proud that we are having our own space station.
And sir, will it be in the vicinity of the, will it be in the vicinity of the ISS or the Chinese space station? Because I think you have to reach that 400 kilometer above level.
No, say solely here all spacefaring nations has got clear understanding and collaborative effort, because in the space it is not our interest to hit something else. So the orbit size, today it is 400 to 420 kilometer. Exact number, everything will be decided considering all other locations, and it will be placed in the appropriate location so that everybody will be safe in the space. At the end of the day, the global community, in my opinion, everybody should be safe. Everybody should be happy. It is not only Indians are happy, other countries are unhappy. So that should not happen. So we are all highly Indians, Indians are good people, and we work towards the happiness of everybody. And honestly speaking, we work for the happiness of not only for us, and that too with the Prime Minister's guideline. We are building satellites. For example, we are building a G20 satellite, not only for us, for using by all G20 countries. And after Modi ji took over as the Prime Minister of the country, we built a satellite and built and launched and donated to South Asian countries. And we are supporting Bhutan, so many countries. So India is a great country. First of all, we should understand. We strongly believe every human being in the globe should be happy. That is our thinking, and that is what Bharat is.
Yes, sir, that is an ideal situation. One question I had, another one, was unless you want to talk about a little bit about the Venus mission, do you want to talk about the orbiter a little bit?
No, see, our interest is we should be second to none in any of the space activities. So right now we have got lot of approvals. One is Venus orbiter, Venus mission. It is going to be orbiter mission to understand, because Venus is having lot of interesting features. Interesting features is what? We know only one thing from literature. Somebody has gone, somebody has done something, and we know from the literature. And we have to contribute scientifically. We have to understand technically lot of things. And this mission already government has approved. We are going to work on that. And a Mars lander mission. Mars, earlier we had the orbiter mission. This also we are working towards that. So like that, multiple directions on interplanetary mission, human space flight program, everywhere activities are going on.
So the question I wanted to also ask is, this is a conclave on strategic affairs, and we are a defense magazine essentially with a component of geopolitics as well. Would you be able to explain in more common language links between the India's space program and its bearing on national security, our national security?
See, one of the rather application of space is to ensure safety with respect to India. If I talk, our responsibility is also, along with the defense team, to ensure safety and security of every citizen of Bharat. And towards that, you all will agree to me, the space satellites can do a lot of things in the area of observing the objects, precisely locating what are all the objects, what are all the locations in which there are things, good things are there, in which bad things are there. We can understand from the space very easily. Through taking a photograph, you can take from the zoom, you can take my photograph, but you cannot take something else. So only from the space, you can do lot of things. You can observe things at least. Then another thing is communication. Real time, when you talk about the war-like situation, the communications are very, very essential. So communication is one important thing, and assured, secured communication. Surely, space is doing lot of things. Space can do lot of things. And in fact, you may be knowing, Sindoor operation also, we could do our part well. But I cannot talk because your safety and my safety is involved. And I cannot talk lot of things. But I can only make a statement. Yes, the space systems worked fantastically well for Sindoor operation. And now, just now I read to your magazine that Business Standard Blueprint, I think, September edition. And it talks about, I thought some of the things I should not talk, but it talks about the entire thing. I was expecting this question from you. Yes, only the people will ask, what are you doing for future, everything. I thought I will simply escape by telling we are doing fantastic job, but then you have written everything. For example, space-based surveillance 3, whatever we are working, page number 11 of the magazine. Whatever I thought I should not talk, everything is there, including how many satellites we are building, what is the budget involved, who is responsible. If I'm correct, the page now, just now only I read. So I was wondering how. Okay, fine. So we are an open book, and we are working on multiple directions. I think I will quote, instead of myself quoting, I will quote from your magazine itself. So that will be appropriate. I think page number 11, if I am correct. It is good. I came a few minutes back and I read your article. So you already published everything. I will only read from that only. Okay. So don't say that Secretary Department of Space told everything. No. So I am reading from your thing. India is the phase 3 of space-based surveillance program enters the frame, aiming to place 52 satellites in orbit by end of 2029. Of course, to ensure safety and security of every citizen of Bharat. And then the budget is also given, my God, 26,968 crore. Budget is also given, and what are we going to do? Everything is given. I think probably you can read this page page number 12 and 13 of this article. And if I talk, then it will be a sensitive subject that I don't want to do. I can only make a simple statement. Space is doing outstanding job, and space-based systems are mandate requirement when you talk about future war or everything. Without space, one cannot win a war. That much I can tell.
So
Without space-based assets.
Yes, just very last question from me, almost. During Operation Sindoor, was there any situation where India had to deploy satellites because of some intrusion or fear of colliding with any adversary?
Probably this question I cannot answer. This question is to be answered by the defense team, but I can only tell, whenever we are talking about a space missions, we are always under tension. For example, I will tell you one thing. The first rocket we launched, satellite launch vehicle in 1979. And it was a partial success. We could not succeed. And I took over as the chairman on 13th January this year. And the first launch after I took over was the 100th satellite launch on January 29th. You can understand, the chairman who has taken over after 41 years of service. And first launch, that to 100th launch for India. And we wanted to write in golden letters in Indian history that we have succeeded. Then you can understand what type of excitement, what type of tension, whatever you call it. And we successfully accomplished that mission. And perfectly, it was a successful mission, and we are written in the golden letters. And when you talk about any missions, really always there will be an tension, excitement. And recently, probably I have to tell you a couple of things. 1962 Indian space program was started. I think probably you may be knowing. And 1963 November 21st was the historical day. That is the day the first tiny rocket lifted off from Indian soil. And that rocket was given by USA. We were not having any rocket in our hand. Of course, T-body rockets were there, but not this space rockets. And so the rocket was given by USA. It was a small rocket, tiny rocket. And till 50 years back, we are not having any space application. Today, if we switch off the satellites, I think our life will come to a standstill. And no ATM transaction, nothing. Lot of things will come to a standstill. And it was 50 years back, 1st August 1975. For the first time, a satellite application was demonstrated in India, keeping 2,400 television sets in 6 states of India, in 2,400 villages, and we wanted to demonstrate mass communication through satellite. And we were not having satellite, then what to do? So we requested a couple of countries. Finally, America gave a signal to demonstrate from their ATS-6 satellite. So 50 years back. And truly, if you look at that point of time, 50 to 60 years back, we were moving our rockets in Trivandrum, by which vehicle? Auto. My God, that was a great luxury at that point of time. People were not having food to eat. Old bicycle in which we were tying and moving. And from that time, this July 30th, we have done an important mission called NASA ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar Satellite Mission. One payload called L-band SAR payload and the antenna, JPL America, USA has spent 10,300 crore. They have spent. To build a equivalent payload, we have spent some money, which I don't want to reveal. We have built a equivalent payload. And the entire satellite was built by Indians in India. And we have launched successfully using our launch vehicle and placed it in the orbit. And what type of significant growth in 50 years? 50 years back, nothing. We were trying to get one small satellite signal requesting, and we were demonstrating. Today, we are rubbing shoulder to shoulder the developed spacefaring nation, standing in par with them, and we have accomplished this mission. And it was a great growth. Probably, please, just 1 second, if you imagine 14,000 crore if the rocket is not successful, it is falling into ocean. You know what type of reaction and response will come from press also? And today, such a costly satellite built Indian rocket has placed perfectly in the orbit. That is the place we have grown.
Sir, thank you very much. Would you like to take a couple of questions from the house?
Yeah, I will take a couple of questions from the house. No doubt.
Just two, maybe?
2 or 3. Okay. But before that, let me make one statement and take the question. Because when I told we moved a rocket in bullock cart, the youngsters should not think, oh, we are a country, I mean, in bicycle. Don't think that we are in the bicycle era. From that bicycle era, we have come along. Today, 9 places we are number 1 in the world in the space activity. 9 places, number 1. Chandrayaan 1 finding water molecule on the moon, along with Russia, America, we are number 1. Chandrayaan 2 having placed the best camera in the world, we are number 1. Mars orbiter mission accomplishing in the first attempt, we are number 1. And 1957, the first satellite was placed in the orbit by whom? USSR. And in a single rocket, they placed 37 satellites. We Indians have placed, using in a single rocket, 104 satellites successfully, and we became number 1. And you know, for placing the satellites, we need rocket engines. The best chemical rocket engine is using liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. And without the cryogenic propulsion, that's what is my core area. I have worked almost 30 years in that field. Without that, we cannot have meaningful space program, and every country knows this. And because of that, the technology was denied to India in the early 90s. And we were so upset, because how to start this program, how to come out, and without this space program cannot reach a meaningful level. We cannot have Chandrayaan 2 program, Chandrayaan 3, human space program, nothing, because we need these engines, basic rocket engines. Today, when I look back, I have to really thank the countries which denied the technology to us. You know why? Because of that, we Indians, we have successfully developed 3 cryogenic propulsion systems, not 1, 3 cryogenic propulsion systems, and we are one among 6 countries having this guarded technology with us. One among 6 countries. If somebody would have given technology, then we would have been copy masters and we would have gone in one route. But today we have developed. Not only that, when we developed the second cryogenic propulsion system for Mark 3 vehicle, the Mark 3 vehicle is the one which placed Chandrayaan 3, Chandrayaan 2, and human spaceflight also, human being also, it is only going to take that propulsion system when we developed. It is not that we have developed. We set targets, we will become number 1 in a couple of places. Today we have made 3 world records in that development. A technology which was denied to India. Not only we have developed the technology, we have made 3 world records, and the entire world is looking on us. What is happening to India? For example, first record. Generally people make 9 to 10 engines. They qualify, test, then only they succeed in the flight. And minimum is 4 engines. One of the country, a small engine. When we decided to make a world record, we decided we will make only 3 engines. The project approval was for 8 engines. And between the first engine level test to flight, generally people take 6 to 7 years. And the minimum time taken by any other country is 34 months. We set a target, 24 months we'll do it. And I still remember, madam, like this one of the international conference I was presenting. 3 engines, 24 months we will accomplish. You know, the 68, 70 countries were there. They could not tolerate the statement. And unfortunately, what happened was the people who were in the audience side, 90% people were having full of grey hair. And I was unfortunately or fortunately having black hair. And because they were much elder people, 70 years, 65 years. And I was 10 years back, I was little younger. And then a question was asked. Hello, gentlemen, you are telling 3 years, 3 engines and 24 months you will do this. Whether you understand what other people have done. Then I told the person who asked, his country made 11 engines and took 6 years. Then I told, your country took 11 engines and 6 years and couple of failures also. The next question by somebody else was, oh, you know this. Knowing this, you are making joke in this international forum. 3 engines, 24 months. I thought it's appropriate to stop my talk. I stopped my talk, came down, then I answered. I told, whatever answer today I am going to give, you people are not going to accept. I will come back with my team from India after 24 months. After successful flight, we'll see. Today, dear brothers, I want to tell, only with 3 engines, in 28 months we have accomplished and we have made 2 world records. And 3rd world record is, we have to do a total stage level test using 5,000 kg of hydrogen and 23,000 kg of oxygen. You know, for testing, we have built a 1,000 crore facility spending 11 years. And hydrogen, I think you may be knowing, hydrogen bomb is known to you, no? If you handle this hydrogen properly, it will work as a fuel. It will obey us. If you don't handle properly, we have to be the slave for that. It will become a hydrogen bomb. It will explode. If it explodes, the entire facility and lot of loss will happen in milliseconds. And generally what is done in the world is, people take this engine, this stage to the test and they do lot of experiments. Load some 500 kg hydrogen and understand what is happening and unload, and lot of money spent. Crores of, hundreds of crores spent. Then only they authorize the test. We were going on debating. We are all toppers, we are all knowledgeable people only. How to make another world record. And we decided we will do lot of digital simulation. And we will not waste money, we will not waste lot of time. Directly we will go for, without any expert. Whatever we want, everything is computer simulation. And we will directly go for the direct experiment. And you know, who will approve this? If any failure happens, the entire area will be out. And I have to thank one great person. I was the project director. Of course, the proposal went from our team. And I was putting the proposal. But then it was approved, you know. You may be knowing one great person, one of our former chairman, Kiran Kumar. He was the chairman. And he took a review. He was, lot of people opposed. They told, we cannot do this type of thing. We should not do. But then he is a person who believes youngsters, who believe the Indian education system, who believe the team. Finally, he asked a question, the project team, what do you want to do? I told, we will go ahead, we are 100% confident. But now I want to tell, we have completed this test in 34 days against the world average time of 7 months and minimum time of 68 days taken by any other country. And we have made the 3rd world record. And this record, in my opinion, nobody can break in near future, because nobody will take this type of risk. So thereby, today Indian space program is in different level. And with today, a country 50 years back, we are not having satellite technology, no launch vehicle technology, not much applications. And today, 433 satellites of 34 countries are lifted off from Indian soil and placed in space using our rockets. So that is the place we stand. With that, I am ready to take a couple of questions.
Thank you, sir. I think we have one question there.
Namaste, sir. I'm really very happy to meet you, and good wishes for the success of all the projects you mentioned. Very simple question. Could you recall or share any setback that turned into a learning or that turned into a eureka moment?
My God. Actually, you, first of all, I have to appreciate you. Why I have to appreciate? You didn't use a word called failure. You very smart way told a word setback. We had lot of setbacks, honestly speaking. For example, when the cryogenic systems were developed, I can give hundreds of examples. Let me take 1 or 2 examples. When we started the development of cryogenic system, today we have made world record, but it has not come just like that. We had setbacks. For example, for the Mark II vehicle, when we developed the cryogenic system, initially lot of failures. And first time when we launched, it was in the year April, if I'm correct, April 2010. And you know, after the engine started, immediately within 0.8 seconds, there is a pump which stopped. and the mission ended with a failure. The satellite fell into the sea. It was a costly satellite also. We are so much upset. 1995 onwards, almost 15 years we worked. And 2010, first flight was, and I joined as a junior engineer. By that time, I have reached the middle management. And that too, our engine was having the problem. Even though it is not directly my system, I was responsible for ignition, everything. But it is our system which failed. And it was a great problem for us. Problem means we were upset, we were youngsters. But I would like to make a couple of statements. Number one, technically it took 3 years for us to come back. We were so much, in fact, that day night I still remember weeping. And you cannot, I could not withstand. But our chairman, Radhakrishnan sir, he made a statement. Look, when a baby starts walking, are you expecting the baby to walk without falling? If the baby walks and run fast without falling, very good. But yes, surely this type of games, when the baby starts walking, expected some time to fall. But after falling, what should not happen is the baby should not simply sit there like a coward sitting and weeping and sitting. It should not happen. With the same speed at which it has fallen, should get up and walk fast. And this is what he told. And we came out of the entire thing and we have done and we have gone ahead. Now coming to our failures or setbacks. The first launch vehicle, SLV-3. First vehicle, there was a marginal missing. Second vehicle, ASLV, there were 2 setbacks. At that point of time only, we understood the entire game of the launch vehicle technology and we have mastered. In fact, in this type of game, the learning curve go exponentially up when you face a setback. So the setbacks are the stepping stones for success. So opportunity to learn, master the technology, and slowly we have faced, at least I have faced some 25 setbacks. But each thing, the learning, the knowledge level, it exponentially jump when you come out of the problem. So we take setbacks as a stepping stone for success.
Any other questions? Please, the microphone, please, here.
So I'm Major General Rajan Kochar from the Indian Army. First of all, the nation owes a lot to you and your organization for the wonderful work you are doing. We want to place that on record.
Thank you.
Second is from Operation Sindoor, China had this Beidou satellite system, 45 satellites in orbit, and they were able to provide Pakistan a 24/7 coverage of the movements of the Indian armed formations, missiles, everything. We were lacking. That is what I could read from the media, because I'm not privy to any classified information which you have. And there is a proposal now, I believe, that we need to develop a system similar to Beidou. So I just want to know that what actions ISRO is taking in this direction.
I cannot go to specifics, but I can talk in general terms. First of all, if somebody has to be smart, somebody has to succeed, somebody has to be this one should know the strength and weakness. One should know. We have done entire studies, entire analysis. Today, I can only make a simple statement. We are putting the specification of all our systems in such a way that we will be second to none. But then this all takes time. It is not today you start, tomorrow it can be concluded. And China, they are having, I understand from the report itself, 900 plus satellites. And I know year before last year, 2022, if I am correct, 100 satellites they placed only for strategy purpose. And knowing everything, we know the entire thing what is happening in the world. But today, in the area of R&D activities, in the area of new developments, everything is focused in such a way that we will be in a position to do the best required thing for our country. That much only I can share at this point of time.
Sir, I'm told you have a flight to catch. So,
yeah, you are right.
So, we will, first of all, thank you very much for making the time to be here. And
Thank you.
And I hope you will return to another business standard conclave, and also that ISRO will start housing projects in space in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Narayanan. Can we please have the memento?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for taking us through the history and the journey and the future of India's space programs. Thank you very much. And thank you, Shatrapa. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm Veenu Sandhu. Thank you so much. May I please invite Business Standard Editor Mr. Shailesh Dobhal to come on stage and deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you very much. I must say, it was a morning well spent, a very high quality discussion. There are many takeaways from 3 brilliant conversations that we had since morning. For me particularly, 4 or 5 things stand out. What the Defense Secretary, Mr. Rajesh Kumar Singh, told us about import dependency, the reduction in import dependency, and how that dovetails into exercising our strategic autonomy. That was a very interesting thing. He gave us a big news point on restructuring of the DRDO. That's something his government is working on. Mr. Bhatia, representing the industry, told us that defense production is a marathon and we are just halfway through that race. Dr. Narayanan, who just left us, gave us a full 360-degree view of the history of the Indian space program, how space science and astronomy is, again, dovetailing into our interplanetary missions in Chandrayaan 1, 2, and 3, and how essentially without a successful space-based assets, you cannot have a war. Thank you for being with us. I'll invite all of you to please join us for lunch, which is downstairs, right and right. And please also do visit the Blueprint desk outside. The magazine is being sold there. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen.